Welcome to the podcast, The Process, with Jeremy Fouts and Walter Beede. Walter, I'm excited about today's podcast. And like I told you before we started, I didn't write down a lot of questions today, mainly because I want to be able to be as authentic as I can as just a dad today, not a co-host of the podcast, asking you questions on the 5-for-5 rule. I know this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I've been so focused on nutrition and running the company and, trying to watch my own two boys play some sports myself. And I have not really dug into all the new rule of the 5-for-5. I know you, that's your life. That's what you have to do, is have all this awareness for you can educate the right information to the athletes and the parents. And so today, Walter, I'm excited for this podcast, not only for the audience that, we are trying to prepare them for that next chapter in life, but I'm excited today as a father, as a dad that has a son just graduated high school and learning everything that I need to know to make sure that we proceed in the right direction. And of course, for all of my audience and your audience, for them to really know the truth, because there's a lot of misinterpretations of the new 5-for-5 rules. So Walter, let's just start off by you giving us a 2 or 3 minute explanation of the 5-for-5 rule. And I've got a lot of questions that I'm going to ask you today to make sure that we're all clear on the process.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest misunderstanding that comes with the whole 5-and-5 topic is that it's, there's an age specific of 19. It's like a cliff, and so there's some different topics that we'll get into, and a lot of this is the NCAA trying to head off at the past future litigation with regard to, waivers, hardship waivers, injury, redshirting, etc. So now I think we're going to find that you have a political dynamic to this. You have the NCAA, and then you have all of the other entities, NAIA and JUCO and so forth, that all also have to kind of begin to play a role within this 5-and-5 discussion. And it's really meant to just say there's a finite period of time that you can be a college athlete. And that's really the nuts and bolts to this whole thing. So while it's an NCAA Division I rule, that kind of also coincides with the name, image, and likeness and the collectives and things like that, there are some other hidden aspects to this 5-and-5 that are currently sitting in political, like the Congress, the House, and then soon to be the Senate components to it. And we'll take a deeper dive into that. But all in all, it's just meant to give parents a level playing field for their student athletes. It won't have such a negative impact with high school athletes as people are being led to believe. There'll be a sting, but it won't be anything that's broken or really smothering to the high school athlete.
Well, let's just go ahead and start with that. The first question: Why would there be a little sting, and kind of give us an explanation of the pros and the cons with this 5-or-5 rule as far as what it relates to high school athletes?
Well, I think the one thing that nobody is really talking about that's in the weeds is this. There's a rule being voted in by the House that will, it's a transfer penalty, meaning you have one free portal transfer without penalty that is yet to be voted on. And then after that first transfer, the next transfer, you'd have to sit out or you'd have to go down a level. There'd be some form of a penalty that would be assessed. Now, that's currently sitting within the House of Representatives. And so when we start to look at that 5-and-5, a lot of people think it's just going to create, this portal, leapfrog, lily pad dynamic. And so 5-and-5 is meant to allow student athletes a 5-year window of athletic eligibility. Meaning if you're doing 2 years in JUCO, you have 3 at the NCAA Division I level. You use 4 at the NCAA Division III, you'd have 1 at one remaining year at the Division I level. Ultimately, NAIA, and NCAA, at least Division II, ultimately will all have some form of the 5 and 5. Now, a lot of parents get stuck with this 19 number that they're hearing. It simply means you can be 19 in 4 months, 19 in 8 months, you can be 19 in 9 months. And then, that 5-year window has an age factor in there. But remember 3 other things, Jeremy, that are really important to initiate this dialogue. And one is the 5 and 5 officially begins when a student becomes enrolled full-time in college. So it's really important to start there. Full-time enrollment. So that means you're taking 15 hours of classes. You're considered a full-time college student. Now, that could be at the NJCAA, JUCO. It can be at NAIA. It can be at Division III, Division II, obviously Division I. When you become a full-time college student, your clock officially starts as a college student athlete. And from that point forward, you get 5 years. So one of the other gray areas that parents are struggling with is if you have a part-time, maybe you're taking some online classes, at any school in the country, Southern New Hampshire, Arizona State, and it's a part-time, meaning you could be a part-time junior college student and not an athlete, but you're taking 8 to 9 hours of classes. Your clock has not started yet because you're a part-time student. So 1, when you become a full-time student, your clock starts. 2, well, how does that impact these athletes that are doing these reclassification or postgraduate years? Again, you can graduate high school and you can be 18 and a half. You still have that ability to become a postgraduate student, take a full allotment of classes and be a full-time postgraduate student. You are not taking a full-time college, schedule, and you're going to graduate your postgrad year at 19 and 7 months, 19 and 8 months. I try to give parents that understanding of September 1st. You don't want to be turning 20, after that date upon postgraduate. You really want to be in that 19 and 9 months window. That's kind of that threshold. What they're trying to do is keep college athletics from 19 to 24. They don't want these college athletes like last year, Miami in the national championship had a 25-year-old quarterback. In basketball, University of Michigan had a first-round draft pick. He was 25 years old. In fact, I think he had played, Division I basketball at 4 other schools prior to landing at Michigan. So they're trying to rein in that collective name, image, and likeness career student athlete that's trying to play competitively at 25 and 26. Conversely, they're trying to give a definitive window to the high school athletes. And so it is going to encourage, right, wrong, or indifferent, it is going to encourage athletes to be physically and mentally mature when they begin to start their college process. But it really is going to benefit everyone, not just Division I athletes.
Okay. Going back to the postgrad, I know you are a big believer in postgrad. Give me a good example of maybe one of your athletes that you're consulting with that you would recommend him do postgrad instead of going into a JUCO or NAIA or whatever the situation may be.
Well, I mean, really, it's an individual that I believe has an academic area of interest that will benefit from a postgrad year. Now, a lot of student athletes that are more athletic centric and academic neutral, the JUCO year, the Division III, or the NAIA, as long as you're going into a school where there is an area of need and they're going to have a window of opportunity to get between the lines to create a resume, then that's just as good as doing a postgraduate year. Where postgrad really comes into play is for those athletes that may be on the undersized, meaning not so much from a height perspective, but from Like that 170 to 185 is really a gray area. Are there athletes that are 180 in college? Yes. But they are the exception. They are not the rule. And the vast majority of college athletes that are getting their opportunities to get between the line, they're in that 190 to 210 window. And so if you feel that whether it's your metrics or your size is just hitting that growth stage, which you and I both know, you more than I, the vast majority of athletes grow between the ages of 18 and a half and 20, meaning they've kind of widened out, thicken up. And so if we're all being honest, you want to be on a level playing field. We've heard college coaches on numerous occasions say to us, we want our incoming athletes to be able to blend into our current roster, meaning they look the part, they play the part. They are one of those 34 or 36 at Division II, or they look the part of the JUCO athlete that is prepared to play. And so where I feel Postgrad offers a lot of families and particularly student athletes a significant chance of growth is learning how to be the college student before your clock starts, meaning learning about roommates, learning about living away from home, learning about time management and workload management. I don't think we as adults spend enough time truly talking to the student athletes about workload. And in their mind, they see, okay, I'm going to practice for a few hours every day. I'm going to take my batting practice. It's more about, the balance of that 13 to 15 hour day, which all of college athletics, including JUCO. I got a lot of parents that think JUCO is just as intense, if not more intense, because they play more games in the fall, and there's more athletes that are on those rosters in the fall. And so you have to learn how to get up early, get your class done, get your workouts done, get your practice done. It's a lot to manage a workload. And so postgraduate allows parents and families to understand, okay, they can cook on their own. Like I've had so many people say, man, Coach Jeremy has helped my son be able to prepare his meals, understand the nutrition, understand the scale, understand how to condition their daily routines to be that of a college student. And I think we lose sight of the baseball and we don't think enough about okay, I got roommates, I got to deal with laundry, I got to deal with study habits and reading and writing and lifting and all of these things. Well, postgraduate allows an assimilation into the world of college before you actually have to be a college. And I've seen that transition from postgrad to college is like seamless. And parents are amazed on the growth of their students, of their children on an overall, not just an athletic perspective. So I really think postgraduate really offers a wide assortment of bonuses that, parents don't really recognize the need for until they actually get to college.
I agree with you big time, Walter. Pearson's playing up at Midland for 8 weeks. We talked about that, and that's something I was talking to the manager the other day when we went up to watch him. I said, Pearson's hitting good, seeing the ball well, all those different things. But I told him, I was like, this experience of him being 8 weeks in Ohio, staying at a host family, doing his own laundry, cooking his own meals. They get to the fields around 11. They stretch, they lift, they start practice, they play games, don't get home till 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. Pearson sending me pictures of his Whoop watch. He's still figuring out to get 8.5, 9 hours of sleep. He sends me pictures of his weights every morning. He's actually gained a few pounds since he's been there. I agree with you. The post-grad, any type of programs like this that prepares them for college of what's to come, because these athletes don't know until they experience it. So I'm a big fan as well of giving them time to kind of understand the process. Now, when we talk about going back to the 5-on-5, what does this mean from how the recruiting times will it change? It seems like, what I used to think I knew about recruiting with this transfer portal and everything, it seems like everything has been delayed from what it used to be. Is this 5-on-5 it going to do anything as far as the recruiting timelines, or are they going to still be about the same?
Well, the timelines will still be the same, but the way the rosters get constructed will be somewhat different. Again,
Okay.
I think it's really important to understand. Let's just talk at the Division One level. A lot of people, when I say this is a Division One topic, while that's true, what ends up happening it creates a domino effect all the way through college athletics. Obviously, we're talking baseball, meaning the draft is this upcoming weekend, which is the 11th and the 12th, which means the signing deadline is the 27th of July, which means that everything is kind of on hold. Teams scurry during the initial portal process of June 1st through the end of June. And then it kind of goes into this lull, and then all decisions are kind of waiting on hold. What parents need to understand is we have now officially moved away from the underclassmen recruiting. And now college coaches are waiting to see the full process academically and athletically through the junior year in high school. And boy, oh boy, I get a lot of upset parents. I get a lot of upset adults. They send me these messages, and I get it. It's a lot of it's based on frustration. And, I'm the messenger. You can shoot me, burn me, you can do whatever, but I'm not the one that created the rules. And when I talk to the college coaches, they all say the same thing. We have to put some things on hold until we see what type of movement begins to occur. So for parents, I think you're safe to assume that in the flurry of decommitments that we start seeing on social media, a lot of that is people that made decisions as juniors in high school. They're getting into that senior fall or that, their rising senior year, and they're being told there's not going to be room because athletes are staying longer. So you have to be slower with your process, or more cautious, I think is the best way to approach it. Meaning there's no hurry, because if you're good enough, whether you're good enough as a junior or a senior, you're only going to try to get better. And so you're better off slowing your process down and creating safety nets for your student athlete, because college coaches now, every spring, the roster is going to be changing. Those that could or those that can are going to stay. Those that couldn't or didn't, they're going to be asked to leave. And so you don't want to be the guy that figures out they can't, and now you're being disposed of, or you're being told to go in a different direction. For parents, it's always best to plan and play the long game, prepare longer, and then start to get into that decision mode during that rising senior summer. When you're
Yeah.
leaving your junior year behind, your academics are firm, your athletics, you've had a year of competition, who your athlete is becoming or who they're capable of becoming, and then you can become aggressive in that fall of the senior year. And also, I don't think parents really understand that the spring of your senior year, it's okay to be making decisions into that time period. You're not going to get passed over. And in fact, you're going to be in higher demand in that spring of your senior year, because you've been patient and you will get rewarded. This is not a game of musical chairs. It's really now incumbent for families to really be focused on the right fit. And like Pearson, a year ago, you may have thought, well, that might not be a good fit, but now look what he's doing look what he did as a junior in high school. Look what he's doing in the summer as a rising, college freshman. He's really turning a corner. And there are people that are saying, hey, we might have missed on Pearson Fouts. Maybe we got to go so you're still seeing the windows of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
And so you see it as a dad. I think more parents need to know that exists.
Okay. So basically the timeline really is about what it was. And that's for these parents to really understand. Is I love that you pointed out, even going into your senior year, I mean, it's not too late. A lot of these parents, they get anxious. I get text messages all the time. My son's really not getting a lot of attention. And from what I experienced with Pearson last summer, going into his senior year, at the beginning of the summer, it was pretty quiet because I felt like all the scouts was focusing on the portal. And then it got really heavy, just like you explained in August in the fall. And then he did decommit because of a coaching change. That was in April. And there was a little bit of nervousness there. As a dad, I'm thinking, well, man, you decommit from a D1 JUCO, what's going to happen? But it was perfectly fine, just like as you explained, and that's through your expertise of doing this for a long time. If you're good enough, when he come on the market, it was easy to fill that spot for us to find a new place. Now, going back to this 5-on-5 rule, let's say Pearson started as a freshman at San Jac. Let's say he did want to go his second year to a D1. I don't think that he's so excited about being at San Jac, but we're just using him as an example. And let's say he did go to a D1, and let's say he didn't like that D1 after a year. He would be able to go to another D1, but he would have to switch or hold out for 1 year, or would he be able to, now that he's went from JUCO to D1, does that consider his first D1? Explain this for wait, I know as a dad, but everybody else knows. You understand the question I'm asking?
Right. So, in other words, when you go to JUCO, the appeal for students is that A, you're draft eligible for all 2 or potentially 3 years at JUCO. The other is you can stay for 1 and go to a 4-year school after 1 year. Obviously, JUCO coaches, that's not appealing to them. They would prefer that you stay for, the 2 years, particularly if your student athlete is active participant as a freshman. But you have the ability to, and there are athletes that do this each and every year. They go JUCO for a freshman year, they play, they have a resume, and then they, go to a Division I school. That's not transfer. That's just you moving from NJCAA to NCAA Division I. He would then have, let's say it didn't work out at the Division I school. Okay, well, now you're going to go into the portal. Well, you get 1 year to do. As of today, as we're talking today, there is no penalization.
Gotcha.
There's a proposal that is currently in the House of Representatives from a political perspective, that they're trying to get those rules established where you would have one unpenalized year, and then after the second time there would be some form of a penalty. And that's so that you don't have free agency each and every year. I think it's important to stress
Yeah.
they're not trying to penalize student athletes, but what they want is some form of guardrail, because whether we want to believe this happens or not, in the world of business, as you and I know, some people do it above board and other people, they do it in a much different capacity, and they have representatives out there. Hey, we know you're not in the portal, but if you were to be in the portal, you could come here for X amount of dollars. So what they're trying to do is get a handle on that. And so they're trying to make it so that if you do transfer and you go from school A to school B, okay, we give you one of those without penalty. But in Pearson's case, if he were to do that after 1 year at JUCO, go to a D1, and then go in the portal, there's no penalty.
Gotcha.
So theoretically, he could be at 3 schools over a 3-year period, and there's no penalty. If and when at the end of that 3rd year, he'd know he'd have 2 years left of NCAA Division I eligibility. And ultimately, I think NCAA, NAIA, I think 5 years is going to become the norm for all athletes, so that everybody's kind of playing in the same pool. But I think what gets parents confused is from the high school perspective, you have to understand that roster construction right now, roster construction is done over 4 years of student athletes. Starting in 2027, meaning the fall of 27, it's going to be 5 years of classes, whether we call it freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate degree. But once you start to add that 5th year, what you're really adding is the 24 and 25-year-old man versus the incoming 18 or 19-year-old. And
Yeah.
I think that's what parents really need to kind of, you get asked, well, what if my son does 2 years of JUCO, then does 1 year of NAI? Any way you slice it and dice it, it's 5 years from when you became a full-time college student. That's when your clock started, whenever you became a full-time student. And so ultimately, there'll be one portal lateral year that you'll be able to do without penalty. And then there'll be some form of a penalty, which will either mean you have to go down a level for a year and then go back up. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of athletes be as portal happy once they settle on that legislation.
I'm pretty excited about it, Walter. I heard somebody make a comment probably about 2 months ago and say, where's these athletes going to pick an alumni game? If they play for 4 different schools in 4 different years, where are they going to go play their alumni game? Walter, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back and finish up this episode by asking you a list of questions. And what I've really valued from your friendship and what you've provided to my personal audience, the reason they love you so much is you give them good, actionable advice. So I'm going to ask you some just little simple questions and I'll give you a head start to be thinking about it. If my son was a freshman, what would you tell me to focus on right now? My son is a sophomore. My son was a junior. My son was a senior, and I know you're the best at this. That way the parents and the athlete are focused on these things. Quick break, we'll get to it. Athletes, electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by Corvive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body as an athlete. All right, Walter, like I said, one of the best things I love about you and our relationship is my audience comes to me all the time. They're like, man, he gives me good, actionable things to act on. When I listen to Walter, not only do I learn, about the 5-on-5 rule, but, when he's working with my family and my athlete, he gives them, hey, do these things, and you don't complicate it. You don't make it, so many tasks that they lose thought process and can't figure and can't control. Because I feel like that's what happens a lot of times with these parents and athlete as they're starting their freshman year. They're maybe focusing on things their freshman year that they need to be waiting and worrying about their senior year, and they miss out on some things that's important their freshman year. So I'm going to ask you all levels. I've got a lot of parents listening in my personal audience. You do as well. We've brought it together, got a whole nother big audience. So what if I have a freshman? What are some things I need to be focusing on in high school, obviously?
Well, the biggest thing for parents to understand is your transcript officially starts that freshman year. And I think a lot of parents think that they'll play catch up the sophomore and junior year. So the biggest thing is your freshman year, you want to be doing 3 things right out of the gate. First of all, A's and B's will play. You really want to make sure you're prioritizing getting the A's and B's. Don't come out of the gate trying to take all honor classes and overloading and overburdening. So the transcript is really the foundation for your transcript is your freshman year. So that's area number 1. Area number 2 is we don't really worry about our projectable skill set. What we want to be able to understand is what is our body? What are our metrics? And when I say that, parents will talk about exit velocity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about let's get a foot speed metric. Let's get where is our body at? And that's a floor. So we want to know, like, if we're at 140 to 150, which is where the vast majority of freshmen are going to be at, we need to make sure that that is something that we are really beginning to focus in on, which is size.
Right.
And so parents will start to get lost in height. And I try to get them, height is not the big variable, the size and the strength. The sooner you make your athlete comfortable with being uncomfortable, meaning, okay, I got to push weight the right way. I got to eat the right way. And all of those things that are going to determine the junior and senior year start as a freshman. So the eating habits, the nutrition habits, the strength habits, the routine, it must begin as freshmen. Worry less about the baseball schedule or the athletic schedule, meaning the camps, the showcases, the summer travel, all that. Those are marginal as far as impact. What is an absolute must is going from that 140 to the 155, 160. Like that is where you want to end your freshman year. So as you're coming into the spring of the freshman year, the grades are tight, the body is moving forward with regard to size, and then your skill set development has to be personal. You should not be trying to get to lessons or anything that's structured or organized. It should be organic. And when I say that to parents, I always use the terminology as a freshman and sophomore, you need to unplug from all of, and I need you to visually look at a switchboard like the operators of yesterday used to use and just start pulling the plugs out. And what you need to be plugging in is the caloric intake, the test preparation, meaning, whether we think test scores are optional or not, plugging in the tutors, taking the SAT or ACT as freshmen, start plugging into the personal development, the athletic development mindset and models that matter more than the travel or what I call the white noise of organized sports. They do not matter. They will not matter until the latter half of the junior year. The sophomore year is really where the weight room has to become like impactful. And we're not trying to be Schwarzenegger. We're not trying to look like a Ronnie Coleman or a linebacker. What we're trying to get is grip strength, foot speed metrics that are measuring out. Meaning, if you're a middle infielder and you're running a 7.2 or 7.3, it's time to start addressing that, not your junior or senior. That sophomore year is about identifying, okay, I have some familiarity with my nutrition. I have some familiarization with the weight room. I understand the classroom. Okay, now my sophomore year, I want to ramp up. I really want to begin to challenge myself, not overextend, but challenge myself in the classroom, meaning, okay, my curriculum is moving forward. It's not like what I call stabilizing or plateauing. My strength is discernibly better than last year, meaning, okay, if I'm squatting, lunging, if I'm doing something, I can see the weights are going up, they're increasing. My foot speed metrics are coming down. I went from a 7.1 to a 7 or a 6.9. I want to have some sort of understanding of where my arm strength, my foot speed, are measuring versus the varsity athletes. Nobody cares what you're doing athletically as a freshman or a sophomore.
Yes.
Can't stress that enough. If you're playing JV, if you're playing freshman, doesn't matter. So you don't need to stress about what level your athlete is playing. Also, sophomore year, there really is no recruiting. There is a awareness that will begin to take place at the end of the sophomore year leading into the junior year. You don't need to chase it. You need to know if you're heading into that direction. And so freshman or sophomore, you're building your foundation. And if you have not built your foundation academically and strength-wise during the freshman and sophomore years, you've wasted 2 years that you cannot possibly catch up to. So I try to get parents to understand, you think there's a Houdini wand that will get waved over your athlete as a junior. It doesn't work that way. And now you deal with parents that are constantly playing catch up in that junior and senior year. They're going from 168 and they're trying to get to that magical 185 or 190 window. Well, you got to pay the piper there. You got to play that year of paying the dues and really getting the calories. Because if you want to get into the recruiting cycle, that begins at 185 and it begins at 6'9" or below. Everything else is a stretch. So if you have focused on that as a freshman or sophomore, now your junior year is the most stressful academically.
Okay, before we get in junior year, I want to stop you real fast and dumb it down with some of these parents. So I love what you said. You kept it simple. I mean, it's okay if you want to post on X as a freshman or sophomore, but that's not what's going to move the meter. Okay. So I love the fact that you started with academics. I've just got an athlete that he increased his SAT from 1240 to 1440 by finding an online program and studying for 2 months. Okay. So I know a lot of times you're big on academics, and I love that. I mean, your brain is learning it at a young age. That's going to stick with you the rest of your life. You can't hit a baseball the rest of your life, but you can definitely, teach the brain the things it needs to do. The networking, I believe in that big time as well. But let's just say you're a college coach. You have two athletes that you're looking to recruit. One of them is got very good test scores, very good academics. They're pretty much equal across the skills from defense to offense. This other athlete, he is not taking care of business on the academic side. The family is not in a financial situation to support him, this athlete. And so this athlete, you're probably going to have to, as a college coach, give a lot bigger scholarship. This other athlete that took care of business and academics, you're probably only going to need to give him about 50% scholarship because he is going to be able to get the rest through academics. Which athlete are you going to pick as a college coach?
Well, here's the biggest misunderstanding when it comes to this. Coaches look for storylines. They look
Okay.
for really good storylines. And sometimes they don't want to hear you verbally tell the story. The transcript will tell you the story. And when I say this, I lose a lot of parents. And typically it's the parents that don't want to believe that this happens. But let's say the student is a B or above student with decent to above average test scores. That not only tells the coach that you're a good student athlete, it says that you have some form of discipline, you have some form of time management, you have some form of accountability. You've set a bar for yourself that you take pride in. That tells a story. And I will always tell parents, when you take a test score multiple times, you're telling an admissions office that you're never satisfied, that you're always striving, and that you're continuing to strive to become the best version of yourself. Not just the best athlete, but the best version of who you're capable of becoming. And that's the story you want to be told in a nonverbal capacity. And so parents need to understand the body is a calling card. The mind is a memoir. And so when you can look down and you say, okay, this student takes pride in their appearance and their study habits, they take pride. That's someone I know I can trust within the culture of my program. And in today's world, that speaks loudly. And it conveys a message long before a college coach begins recruiting your student athlete. And then as far as from a financial affordability, and a lot of parents will always say the last thing the world needs is another sports management degree or a psychology degree. And I do fantastic things in my life and I don't have a college degree. Well, I always try to get parents to understand this is a bigger thing for you to understand that that academic money, that schools have pools and pools of academic money. They want to retain the incoming freshman class. And I think if you want to take away one aspect of recruiting from this episode, when you apply to college, there are, let's say, 20,000 applicants for 1,000 spots. I'm just giving a hypothetical. That's a really small number. Well, behind that, sophomores, let's say out of the 1,000 that get accepted that show up on campus in the fall of 2026, they want to retain well over 80% if they can. That means they lose 200. Well, now transfers start coming in. Well, there's only maybe 200 applicants, 300 applicants in for that 200 spots. Well, guess what? They're all probably going to get in, meaning there's a larger volume and it's easier to transfer into schools as current college students because now you've proven yourself. So if you're a proven academic commodity, you're always going to be in demand. And so there's always going to be academic money that's available. When you're a student in good standing, they want to retain you. They're going to incentivize you to stay at their school. So they're going to up your academic package. They're going to increase your scholarship money, or you're going to lessen the burden on a tuition. Always better to be prepared academically and be benefiting from the academic merit and grant money than trying to chase the athletic money, because the athletic money can be taken away
at any time.
At any time.
Yeah.
Did you offer a college coach a reason to keep you at 60% athletic money? If you didn't, guess what? It's going to get chopped in half, or it's going to be taken away in its entirety. And if you've taken care of business in the classroom, they may be able to offset what they have to take away athletically and upgrade it academically. So absolutely always chase, the academic strength of not only the transcript, but, the community service, the things that make you who you are and how you can be evaluated over and above as an athletic performer.
Yeah. I love it, Walter. Just tell you what my dad used to call taking care of business. Take care of business on the field and off the field. Okay, going into our junior, senior year, finish it out. What do we need to focus on? I love the fact that you said freshman and sophomore year, we're focusing on grades, academics. We can't go back our junior year and fix what we didn't do our freshman year. So we've got to take care of business our freshman and sophomore year. These athletes that have taken care of business in the classroom, in the weight room, on the nutrition program, now junior, senior year, what do they need to focus on?
Well, you really need to understand who you're being evaluated against. It's not your peers locally, regionally. It's really the 21 to 23-year-old college athletes, no matter where they may be within the ecosystem of college athletics. And I don't think enough parents pay attention to that, because they're always looking at, well, this guy's ranked here and my son is as good as this guy over here. Well, how does he rank against that college JUCO athlete that's a sophomore that's coming out and now has 3 years of 4 years eligibility? You're always being evaluated against older, stronger, skilled athletes. And so junior and senior year, for families that are going through the recruiting process, you want to be slow to pull the trigger. You don't want to be trigger happy, meaning I want to commit, because there's really nothing set or etched in stone. And so again, we say this word over and over and over, fit. And fit is so much bigger than athletics. Fit is really about the campus, the culture, the community, the geographics, the academics, the campus, et cetera. But you really have to understand, what does that school look like for my child without athletics? Is this really a good fit for us as a family? And, begin to recognize that you're being evaluated against men.
Mm-hmm.
And so we cannot try to make our juniors and seniors someone that they're physically not capable of becoming, unless they have taken that foundational years of 14 to, say, 17 to heart and really have prepared their body for the next layer of development, which is everything above the junior year in high school moves faster, moves more aggressively. They don't have any feelings. Like, you have to unplug feelings. Like, this is nothing personal. It's just business. College athletics about being able to form, being able to execute. And so you have to begin to prepare your athlete to execute in moments of stress, get them to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, performing under duress, moving under duress, understanding your body's not always going to feel at 100%. You may be playing games and you're 80%. So as juniors, slow your process down. Don't be in a hurry. College coaches aren't in a hurry. Well, that guy just committed. He's a junior. My son's a junior. Well, that could be a really different situation. They could play a position and they're really, really talented. And so sometimes schools will take guys out of the recruiting process, but that doesn't mean they're still committed to them. They can be decommitted at any time in the process. You need to be aware of that. But what college coaches are looking for in juniors, are you making a significant progress with your curriculum. You're challenging yourself. Every college coach will use the terminology challenging yourself in the classroom, challenging yourself with regard to your level of athletic competition, meaning you're looking to play against older boys. That's why American Legion is starting to make a comeback. That's why you're going to start to see prospect leagues, college summer prospect leagues that are going to include high school athletes, juniors, seniors against college freshmen and sophomores. And you're going to have to be successful at those levels. But the number one thing to try to get parents to have some peace of mind is don't stress over things you can't handle, or you cannot take the wheel of your student athlete and try to navigate. The college coaches will navigate that. But the weight room and the classroom are the two biggest separators. And so if you want to add that third, it's the table where your child is going to eat off of. So those three rooms, for lack of a better term, they're the ones that dictate the level and the athletic achievement that your student athlete will attain. I have a young man right now, he's from Texas. He's playing in a college summer league this summer, and he's doing very, very well. In fact, he's exceeding what they thought he would be doing. And now he has gone from maybe a Division I might play. Now the Division I coaches are actively following him and recruiting him. But he just graduated from high school. Now he's playing in a college summer league. So parents, the summer circuit is not the same as it used to be. Some travel teams are becoming developmental focused. That's great. But don't rush the recruiting process just because your student athlete is a junior or about to become a senior. There's still time. There is no hourglass over either one of your shoulders. Let your athlete develop in the classroom, the weight room, and at the dinner or breakfast table. Everything will work out if they're following their path that you've set forward for them.
Okay, so I love what you said as far as you got to do a good job evaluating, where your kid is. Because I had a dad the other day said, my son hasn't got any D1 schools reach out to him, and he's good enough to play D1. And I was very nice about it, Walter. But my comment that I made is I said, it's not important if you think he's good enough to be D1. What the important is, what is the marketplace saying he's good enough? And I said, if he's good enough to play D1, he's probably going to get some phone calls from D1 schools. If he's not, then maybe he's not as good as we think, or we just got to keep getting better and give them more to look at through the projections. So final year, your senior year, I don't want to get caught up on all the things I should not be focusing on. What are some few final things that say, Walter, bring me home here. This is my senior year. I've took care of business my freshman and sophomore year as far as nutrition. I've took care of business in the classroom. I've took care of business in the weight room. Thank you for all this guidance, because I'm in a real good spot. Now, what are the final things I need to work on going into my senior year here to make sure I make the right decisions?
Number one is widen the lens. There's no such, the lines are blurred. They have been blurred for a while, but they're officially blurred. Everybody that wants to say there's no such thing as athletes going from NCAA Division III to Division I, that simply isn't true. That's happening more and more. Division I JUCO, Division I NAIA, and Division I NCAA are really where elite athletes are participating. And you can go to either one of those three levels of competition, but you really want to ask yourself, am I going to be an active participant? If the answer is no or maybe, that's not something that is really all that advantageous, because you don't want to be a spectator in a uniform. So I will always say to parents, what you want to find is the pathway to get between the lines. What is the access to get between the lines during the freshman and sophomore year in college? The number one thing to understand, Jeremy, is the resume now is more important than anything else with regard to college athletics. The 5 and 5 simply tells us it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And so whether that be at Division III at the NCAA level, Division II at the NAI level, JUCO Division I, II, or III, you really want to get someplace where you can get between the lines, be active, put a resume together, prove that you're capable as a college student athlete, and then you can move accordingly based on your skill sets and where college coaches feel you're going to help best with regard to your role within a college program.
Okay. Walter, I tell you, this podcast will probably be the most viewed and listened podcast that we have did together, because we again tied everything into what is important on being part of the process, which is, yes, nutrition is what I do every day. I mean, you saw some example of some of your athletes, the difference it makes, but also the importance of grades, also the importance of doing the right things through this process of your high school career. I'm going to leave with one quote, and then I want you to leave with your final words. And as my quote, I want to say, parents, don't ask how this rule changes recruiting and all the different things so much, where you put all of your attention into understanding every little detail. I think, Walter, you've done a real good job explaining the basics, for they understand. You've explained to them what they need to be doing from freshman to senior year. Here's what I want parents to ask how it changes what they should be doing every day. And you did a great job of laying it out for them from freshman year to senior year. So don't ask how this changes everything and be worried about everything. It's ask what your athlete should be focusing on every day, and focus on that. So leave us with some final thoughts here on the process.
I think it's really important for parents to understand that all these changes are actually a good thing. They're not penalizing anyone. They're just protecting everyone. And when I say that, parents will get caught off guard. I'll say, nobody's being penalized, but everybody's being protected. And believe in the process for your student, because there's more to life than just college athletics. And you want this to be a part of who they are. You don't want it to consume who they're trying to become. And I think we get so carried away with what I consider to be trivial kind of components to youth sports from starting at the age of 14. And if we just prioritize the polish of the young man or young woman over the course of those 5 or 6 years of high school and middle school, I think everything else will work out, and your student athlete will find a home. And it does not matter what level. You just want their athletics to be a part of who they are as a person at the collegiate level, if they have that desire.
Walter Beede, you're the best. I mean, this podcast, I think, is going to no doubt be something that is viewed and listened to over and over. You have done a really good job laying out the process of the 5-on-5 rule. Thank you for your time. Parents, as Walter said, don't worry about all the little details. They're not getting penalized. This is what's good for our youth athletes. We don't make the rules, obviously. We just learn them, understand them. Walter did a good job presenting them to you today. Take care of business every day. Become that athlete that your son or daughter needs to become. So thank you, Walter.
You're very, very welcome, Jeremy. Thank you as always.
Athletes, electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by Corvive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body.